Hi there. How many trees can be harvested sustainably from a piece of forest? Or how many deer can one kill without causing populations to collapse? These are important questions in conservation biology and forest management, and they can be answered using matrix population models. In this knowledge clip, I will show you how matrix models can be used to evaluate sustainability of forest exploitation. And you will learn how to include harvesting in matrix models and how to simulate the responses of populations to exploitation. Let's first see how we can implement harvesting in matrix models. As an example, we have a tropical tree species with 5 size categories: seeds, seedlings, juveniles, small adult trees, and large adult trees. The resulting life cycle has green arrows for reproduction, pink arrows for growth, and blue arrows for stasis. And the transition matrix looks like this. Now, I'll show you how to implement harvesting in this transition matrix. We start with harvesting of seeds. Suppose 60% of the seeds produced by the adult trees are harvested. In the transition matrix, you simply need to reduce the green transitions by 60%, like this. Another way to implement seed harvesting is to remove seeds from the population structure instead of the transition matrix. So you can reduce the number of seeds in the vector before you multiply it with the transition matrix during simulations. Let's move to the second type of harvesting, logging of trees. If 60% of all the adult trees are logged, you need to multiply both the stasis and the growth transitions of small adults with 0.4, because tree survival is included in both of them. And you need to also reduce the stasis transition of large adult trees by 60%. The results look like this. And note that in this case, I did not change the reproduction transition because seed production per tree is not changed by logging. Again, we can also implement this type of harvesting by removing individuals from the vector. The last example is for harvesting certain parts of the tree: leaves, bark, resin, or branches. This is a bit more complex, as harvesting may have different effects on survival, growth, and reproduction. Let's suppose that leaves of juvenile trees are harvested. And let's further assume that leaf harvesting causes a 50% reduction in growth, but no change in survival. So you need to reduce the growth transition by 50%. But the implication of this change is that we also reduce survival of juvenile trees. We just reduced the survival, the sum of growth and transitions, stasis transitions, from 0.7 to 0.65. And this is not correct, because we said that harvesting affects growth, but not survival. So all individuals that do not grow to the next class need to remain in the juvenile class. The solution is to add the 0.05 reduction in the growth transitions to the stasis transition, like this. Please note that this type of harvesting cannot be implemented in the population structure because it does not involve removal of individuals from the population. So you've learned how you can change transition matrix to implement harvesting. Now we'll see how we can study the effects of harvesting using these models. There are 2 options. You can simulate population growth, or you can simulate the amount of harvestable product. Let's see how that works. The first option to evaluate the effects of harvesting is by simulating population growth. We start with a population of 10,000 trees and we'll run the model for 20 years. You can see that the population without harvesting is growing exponentially. The population with 60% seed harvesting is declining initially and then growing again. Lambda, the asymptotic population growth rate, is also higher for the control population compared to the seed harvesting population. Now we add the growth of the logged population over here. This population declines rapidly and the lambda value is below 1. This implies that the logged population will continue to decline, so population growth is more strongly affected by logging than by seed harvesting. Let's now simulate the population with leaf harvesting. In this case, the population grows continuously but at a slower pace than the control population. Overall, these simulations clearly illustrate the effects of different forms of harvesting on the population growth of our tree species. The second option to study the effects of harvesting is by simulating the amounts of harvestable products. So we simulate the number of seeds or trees and not the population size. In this graph, you can see that without any harvest, seed production would increase exponentially, just like population growth. If we simulate 60% seed harvesting, the amount of seeds remains the same over time. This is an indication that seed harvesting can be sustained over time. And what about the amount of trees that can be logged? This graph shows the simulated developments of small and large adult trees over time. And it is clear that the amount of adult trees that can be harvested is going down. So wood production can clearly not be sustained if 60% of the adult trees are logged each year. So let me summarize what you've learned. You've seen how different types of harvesting can be implemented in matrix models. And then you've learned how to simulate the effect of exploitation on populations and the harvested products. In this way, you can use matrix models to develop sustainable exploitation regimes. Thanks for your attention.